You're listening to the Back Home Network, presented by Homefield Apparel.
And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another victorious episode of the Assembly Call. As tonight, your Indiana Hoosiers beat Sam Houston 97-71 in a game that IU took control of about midway through the first half and let them get as close as 9. But overall, really showed some stretches of solid play, particularly on the offensive end in the game tonight. This moves the Hoosiers to 6-2. On the season, and a game that saw the starting lineup struggle a little bit, but saw Mike Woodson make some adjustments. Did not see a lot of the two big lineup at all, particularly in the second half, and some major contributions off the bench from guys like Luke Goode, Anthony Leal. Really stepped in and gave IU some huge minutes, some huge production, and a good team effort, and one in which nearly everybody who played was able to get into the scoring column. So a lot of guys got playing time. IU picks up a big win, about double what the point spread was, I believe, which will help in the metrics, and a solid Tuesday all around for IU. So we're going to break it all down for you tonight on the Assembly Call IU postgame show. I'm Andy Bottoms, and joined by the coach Brian Tonsoni and Ryan Phillips. Jared may be joining us a little bit later as well. And with that, we're going to start this show the way we start every show, and that is with our banner moment. And for me, that was really the play of Luke Goode in the first half. The starters had struggled. I think it was 7-7 or 9-7 when IU started to sub. And Goode was able to come in, hit 4 threes in the first half, ended up with 13 points before the break. And great for a number of reasons. Obviously, it was a huge spark for IU within the context of this game. But also, as you think about, we talk about the banner moment of a sign or a moment that helps you think that IU can hang another banner. Like he did in this game exactly what he was brought here to do, and why he wanted to come here and do that. And it's one of those things where you look at. I know you guys mentioned on the post game show in one of the Battle for Atlantis games that he was one of the guys who was really getting into it, really talkative in the huddle. Mike Woodson talked about that in his press availability, or maybe it's at the coach's show yesterday. I said, we need more guys who are talking like him. And, as we texted in our group chat, I said, it's kind of nice that the basketball gods sometimes will reward a guy who's doing the right things and being that kind of leader. And thought that was just fantastic for him, and a guy that IU's going to need to step up at times during the season. He stepped in, made shots, took them confidently in transition, and was able, even kind of made his last 3 of the game in the second half to give himself I think it gave him his career high. Catches the ball, takes a dribble to get himself behind the 3-point line, and just drains it. So overall, the play of Luke Goode, but I thought particularly in the first half, to me, was the banner moment and a real highlight for him. As somebody who had wanted to go to IU for a long time, and for him to step up in this game and get his career high, huge moment for him. So congrats to Luke Goode on that. And our banner moment today, as always, is brought to you by our friends at Homefield Apparel, who is now in their 8th season sponsoring the Assembly Call, and their 4th as a presenting sponsor for the Back Home Network. Homefield has the largest collection of vintage IU apparel that you will find anywhere, and since IU is their flagship school, more high-quality gear with unique IU logos from the past is always right around the corner. Recently, we have moved past 9 Windiana and past 10 Windiana to 11 Windiana over the weekend. Also, a Kurt Signetti shirt is out there to celebrate the success of the football program. And there's really no better way to celebrate what IU is doing on the gridiron than with a fresh new Homefield Apparel shirt. And no matter what you buy from Homefield, it'll be comfortable and the colors will last. This is the final day, the final hours at this point. If you're listening to this not live or on Wednesday morning, it'll probably be too late. But they do still have their Black Friday / Cyber Monday sale still going. You can make sure that you check their socials, text alerts, emails to find out what the latest promo code is. If you missed that, you can go and use our promo code HOME23 to get 15% off your entire order. So go to homefieldapparel.com. That's promo code HOME23 for 15% off. We're waiting on Coach to post his holiday wish list from home field on the Substack so that he can maybe get some gifts from his loyal listeners and followers here. But again, encourage everybody to go to homefieldapparel.com, wear one for the team, and pick up some holiday gifts for your loved ones. All right. Now it's time to move the ball, find the open man, and get some opening thoughts from the rest of our team. And so we'll go to Coach first. Coach, you can use this to list off, your wish list or talk about the game. I'm going to leave that up to you.
So I tell everyone now, just send me money and I'll order what I want. I had an order that had 5 items come in today from home field, and then I gave them to my wife, and she doled them out. These are from Mom. These are. I said, well, I need to order 3 more, so I hurry up and ordered 3 more. So my wish list has been taken care of, I think. But if anyone wants to buy 4XL, and so hey, tonight was a better night offensively than defensively. I think Indiana did some things lineup-wise and shooting the 3 and transition basketball that were more like college basketball, and I thought it was fun to see. No side of the basketball is going to be perfect, but I thought offensively when they went small, it opened up a lot of things. And I thought that was good. I back up what you say about Luke Goode. I won't repeat it, but I was going to say a lot of those same things. When you are the guy who is getting on people in the Bahamas and then you can back it up with one of your better efforts, I think that just speaks volumes. And he was excited when Leo came in the game. And if you maybe I should say this for meaningful moment, but there at the end, everyone else, body language, even in a big win, was just kind of laid back on the bench. And Goode was up cheering at 1:45 for the players who were in. Now that's leadership. And it's good to see a guy see that ball go in the basket there. Defensively, I thought it was a struggle again tonight, and luckily the point guard was out, starting point guard was out. I think there's still some struggles with blow-bys and baskets at the rim. Even in a big win like this, you give up 71 points. I think that there's some personnel issues there in guarding that really aren't fixed yet, and even the offense isn't fixed. So I don't think this was a get-right game, and I don't think we can just flush what happened down at the Battle for Atlantis. When you see this kind of effort and getting better 4 or 5 games in a row and then against better competition, then we can feel a lot better. But, you don't want to have a setback or you don't want to come out and lay an egg. So tonight I thought there was some steps in the right direction overall.
All right. Ryan, what's your rant for this evening?
Yeah, I think the first thing is I think the 2 big lineup needs to go away. And it just the 2 guys on the floor at the same time just do not flow together. It doesn't work. And I know that you have paid a lot of money to certain guys, so they need to be on the floor. But Malik Renew and Umar Ballo on the floor at the same time is a recipe for disaster for Indiana. They just do not play well. And when they go one big, they spread it out and play really well and play more open basketball and there's more speed and there's more, driving and there's, it's just regular. It's what you expect from basketball these days. That 2 big lineup bogs them down, slows it down, and then they don't get back in transition either. And so they're going to beat on one end of the floor and the other. The other thing I wanted to say is I thought the best player Indiana had all game was Anthony Leal. I thought he did things on both ends of the floor that other people weren't doing. And we were talking about it in our group text. In 25 minutes, Anthony Leal's plus minus was 39. Plus 39. They're at their best when he was on the floor. Again, a lot of highly paid players on that floor, and the guy with the most heart ends up having the best game. So there's lessons there for Indiana. And one of them is stop slowing yourself down and imposing that on yourself. And the other is use the guys that are going to put the most effort on the floor and use them to do the right things.
Yeah, I think that's a good jumping off point for what to me was probably the biggest storyline of the game. So the starters really struggled as a unit. I think individually they all had some moments, but as I look back, I think there was 3 stretches where they played together. So they started the game, it was 7-7 before they started subbing, had 4 turnovers in that time span. Then later in the first half, came back in, were outscored 4-2, had 3 turnovers in that time span. So 7 of the 9 turnovers in the first half was when the starters were in there outscored by 2. then come out of the locker room, get outscored 11-6 to start the second half. Only had one turnover in that stretch, but Mike Woodson at that point really went away from the two bigs for the remainder of the game. And I think even, Josh, our intern from last season, he said Indiana led 29 to, this is just first half only, led 29-9, and then 9:41 with one of Renew or Ballo on the floor, while Sam Houston State led 16-13 in the 10-19 when they were both on the floor. So that's a little bit different than the numbers I had, just because it's starters versus who was in with those guys. But I think part of that can be chalked up to a function of Sam Houston, a small team. I don't think started anybody over 6'7". Did have one little bit bigger guy that they brought in occasionally. I think you can make the argument that it was partly that. But I think the other piece of it is it really bogs down the spacing of what IU is trying to do offensively. And I thought you saw Rice have more room to operate in a number of those scenarios in the second half. He really got himself going as well. And I think just having a little bit more of that space was critical to that. And there may be Big Ten games that we get into and you can play both those guys. I know, to your point, Ryan, there's an investment made, if you will, in some of that. And so I think we're going to see it at times. But I did appreciate Mike Woodson's acceptance tonight that was not what was going to help this team perform in the game. And I think there have been criticisms of, like, he's too slow to recognize this, that, whatever. I thought he wasn't tonight. I think he's a guy who's almost always going to come back out, put the starters in the beginning of the second half, but pulled the ripcord on that pretty fast, and even pulled the ripcord on it pretty fast toward the end of the first half, because they didn't play together. The five of them did not play together for very long, even in that stretch where they outscored 4-2. So I think that's going to be an interesting thing to watch, particularly as we get into Big Ten play. So Coach, I'll kind of throw it to you first. Like, what were the key differences that you saw without Ballo and Renew in the game together that really helped IU?
I'm going to go back to what Ryan said. There was spacing. I think you saw Myles Rice had been struggling for a while, especially in the Bahamas, and he struggled early tonight with that starting unit, and he just got out of the flow. I thought the whole first half, once he hit that baseline jumper, that contested baseline jumper, that was a big shot, then all of a sudden it just opened up for him. So you have some floor space for him to get downhill and do what he wants, and he can hit that. He had a big three in transition. I think transition basketball is easier because you got one big running to the rim and you got other people to the three. That early offense that we talked about on X's and Joe's. You saw a lot of that today with players taking three-pointers. I love the deep one Luke Goode took off the pressure where the ball got put to him, and he was a couple steps behind the three. And I think that they just had good movement, which we've been clamoring for the 4 years, is when you move people, then the defense is struggling, and then you have areas and lanes to drive. So I just think it also puts Renew where Renew is the best, and that's at the basket. I know Renew can shoot the three, but Renew is so darn good with his footwork at the basket when he catches, and he can bully even big players, and he has a nice spin move, a nice little baby hook. I've said all along we have 2 5s in the starting lineup. They both need to be back to the basket players to maximize their ability. So you already have Ballo in that spot, and then you can space the floor. I know Ballo had a nice high-low pass at the start of the second half, and you can do some of that. But it really opens up the court in the most general way. And I thought you saw that tonight with a lot of points being scored and a lot of better offensive movement when you went to the one big lineup.
Yeah, I think what you said about Ballo is true. Like, he did have that nice pass. Renew kind of faked one way, spun back toward, and got the ball at the rim. But I think we've seen, in a lot of ways, enough from Ballo to know that he's not all that comfortable making passes. He can make some good passes, but he's not a consistently good passer. And defenses know he's not going to put the ball on the floor, versus if you get the ball to Renew out there, even in some kind of pick and roll situation, and he gets the ball at the elbow, he's able to take a dribble, get in the lane, do some things. And he showed that tonight as well. And I think the movement was really critical. To go back to Leal, his cutting and just overall understanding of where to be, where the ball needed to be, move the ball, not looking to shoot. The same stuff we've said about him when he started getting more run last year. This team has a lot of guys who have either here or other places been counted on to score a lot. And it becomes difficult at times when you're playing those guys together. Leal is not a guy who fits that category. He's going to point people, get them in the right spot, keep the ball moving, and really drive things in that way. I thought he did a great job of pushing the ball in transition. I just thought, to Ryan's point, that he was such a spark in terms of the pace that he played with. And I think it shows you don't have to be the fastest guy around to play with pace and to control the tempo of the game. And I thought him doing that allowed Rice to settle in just a little bit. He played a lot more under control in the second half than he did in the first. Some of that I think you can attribute to the spacing, but I think it's probably worth lingering a little bit on Leal's performance, quite honestly, Ryan, as we talk about that. I know you mentioned him in your opening, but he's a guy who hadn't played a lot this year. I think, battling some injuries. I think that, his the splits that he did in the Tennessee exhibition may have sidelined him for a bit, but I thought he just did.
That would put any man down.
I mean, I would still not be, able to be active at this point. So, but I guess just what are some of the little things that you saw him do that really impacted the game?
I just defensively, he's always in the right place. Offensively, he's always moving the ball. He knows where the ball needs to go. You look at his line, and if you're just box score watching, it's 4 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. Okay. But it wasn't that. I mean, he just you've seen this with Trey Galloway a few times during his careers. He'll come in and elevate everybody else energy-wise, speed-wise, and get things moving. And I just thought that's what Anthony Leal did tonight. And I think he's a guy who, at one point last year, I was advocating for him to start the Purdue game because he had started to play so well and had so many big performances and had rescued a team that, was lethargic a lot of the time. And we've seen this team do that as well in 2 games and, quite frankly, in maybe a third in the non-conference so far. And I just think he's a guy who, if he's healthy, can do things for this team and needs to not be an afterthought, because we've seen him. I mean, he came back. I don't think he came back to sit on the bench and never play. And I don't care how much you're paying the other guys. If they're not performing up to the level that they need to be, he should get some time just to wake everybody up. And it's just such a stark contrast of talent versus hustle and what one can bring you and what the other can bring you. If you're talented and don't hustle, you contribute a whole lot less than the guy who has no talent, but he doesn't have no talent, but I'm using that as an example, and a ton of hustle. And Leal can do some things on the court, so it's not like he's talentless. I just think that, sometimes we fall in love with talent and forget about the other half of the equation, which is focus, energy, hustle, things like that. And he shows that every time he's on the floor.
Focus, Brian Butch, whether you liked him or not, I don't think he was really good on the telecast tonight, but he mentioned several times there was lack of focus by some players. Well, you don't get that with Anthony Leal. And you don't get that necessarily. You don't get that with Goode either. Those are skills. Shooting and all the other things are always skills, but being focused, playing hard, knowing the scout, doing those things. There were a couple of plays, 3 plays that really stood out for his hustle. One was a drive, and he kind of no-looked it, and he threw it to Goode on kind of a baseline drift, and it was assist for a 3. Then he had a nice little kick ahead. It might have been to Mbako or someone on a fast break that was just perfectly laid up there for a break. And then he got a foul on a rebound when he muscled in. We've talked about how offensive rebounding has been a poor stat for this basketball team, and there's your 6'5" guard down there fighting for position, then going up, he gets bodied out of bounds, and Indiana retains possession. Those are things. Now, the only thing that struggles with Leal is probably on-ball defense or that straight-line drive defense, but he is in the right position, and he blocks out, and he pursues the basketball, and he does a lot of the little things. Like, this team needs better focus overall, and I think Leal and Goode have provided that tonight. And the others, if they get there, man, then the talent. And I see people talking about minutes and all those things. If Leal gets 14 to 20 minutes a game and can continue to do what he's doing there, he's going to help Indiana win. I don't think he's a 30-minute basketball player. But the other players can feed off of those two guys, what we saw tonight, and improve their game with a little bit of energy and a little bit of focus. I think then their talent is elevated. You saw it in Rice tonight. Once Rice settled down and started focusing, man, he was unbelievable in the second half. I put in our text message how I thought he was really struggling and had been in the Bahamas, and then all of a sudden he got that focus and he started playing more fundamental, and he was going strong instead of weak. And so that stuff carries over, and that might be what this program needs is that kind of play. And Leo was fantastic, I thought, tonight.
Yeah, you hit on a couple of the things that I had written down for Leal. I think the one hit-ahead pass you talked about was Mbako. He had really run the floor hard, had a small guy on him and his hand up, and just great recognition from Leal to get it into him. And Mbako from there just kind of bullied the guy for a bucket. You had one even later than that, real nice cross, kind of cross court pass to Tucker that got a layup in transition after he got a rebound. I think there was a stretch in the first half, like he just kind of covered up some things defensively. Renew had kind of a silly turnover, but he comes back and gets a steal on the other end, and then him hustling back down the floor was a play they highlighted where then Tucker gets back in and gets a steal. Just really running the floor hard was probably as much as anything for him. Pushed the ball up, but was able to get back and help out defensively. Just saw lots and lots of great little things. Probably the maybe the most telling moment, the most Indiana moment, you will, of the game is balls down, two guys die for the floor and kind of run into each other, and it's him and Luke Goode. I thought that was like a play that really embodied what those two brought to things tonight. Now you ended up getting the ball out of that, as I recall. So really good stuff from him, and hopefully he can stay healthy and keep contributing, because I think he brings a lot of things to the table that that this team is going to need. So with that, I think we will take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to continue this the breakdown of IU's 97-71 victory over Sam Houston. We'll point out some meaningful moments that you might have missed and go inside the numbers to highlight the most important statistical notes from the game. If you're listening to Assembly Call, stick with us.
This is Vernell Jones. What's better than an epic buzzer beater? The full court dribble and perfectly placed pass to set it all up. And of course, celebrating with Hoosier Nation afterwards. So join Jared, Andy, Ryan, and Coach on the Assembly Call after every IU basketball game. Go Hoosiers.
All right, welcome back to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. I'm Andy Bottoms here with my co-hosts, the coach Brian Tonsoni and Ryan Phillips, and we're breaking down IU's 97-71 victory over Sam Houston. And it's now time for today's meaningful moment that you might have missed.
Meaningful moments that you might have missed.
And this segment, as always, is brought to you by our friends at the Hoosier Ticket Project, where they help individuals and families experience Indiana University athletic events in person for the first time through the generosity of alumni and fans. To learn more about how you can donate money or extra tickets to help create meaningful moments for other IU fans, visit HoosierTicketProject.org. Again, that's HoosierTicketProject.org. I know from following them on social media, they had a number of fans at the game tonight, and they are treated to a 26-point IU win. So good stuff for them. And as was mentioned before, seeing all the people they sent to IU football games this year has been awesome. And those people had experiences given this season that will probably keep them coming back for more. So I think, really, really good stuff that the folks there are doing. So again, encourage you to check that out, HoosierTicketProject.org. In terms of meaningful moments, I want to talk a little bit about Myles Rice. Coach, you alluded to this a minute ago. I thought he, in the first half, really struggled. As I texted you guys, it seemed like the odd combination of trying to play really fast, but not really being confident in what he wanted to do. I think he was trying to get somewhere quick, but didn't know what he wanted to do when he got there. I think that led to a carry in one case where he just moving so fast. And I thought, oddly enough, he had missed a drive to the basket early in the second half. But what really seemed to get him going was he hit a really tough mid-range baseline jumper, and it seemed like combination of him seeing that go through the hoop, getting the floor a little bit more opened up as they went to the one big lineup. He scored a ton of points at the rim over the course of the second half. Had another nice step back mid-range jump shot, hit a 3 in transition. Just did a little bit of everything and seemed to settle in a little bit more. I don't know that I would attribute his uptick in play solely to the fact that there was only one big guy on the floor. That's probably overdoing it. But Coach, I'll throw it to you because I know you mentioned that play and mentioned him as well. What did you see different from half one to half two, or even what you saw from him in Atlantis to what you saw tonight?
You need to play with pace, but you need to be poise added to the pace. And what you talked about was that he was just going at a pace that he lost his fundamentals in the first half, almost trying too hard to make something happen. And then once the game settled in and he saw that jumper go down and the floor was spaced, then he was able to play at a correct speed, but at a speed with good fundamentals and poise. And I think that's something that, last year he probably had a lot more freedom in the ball club out in the Pac-12 and can do some things. And now he's trying to fit into a system and he's finding his way. And he just needs to trust his training and play basketball. And I think obviously we're all in the chat and everyone's talking about the one big lineup. I think that just benefits the young man because I think he's really, really talented. I think he can score. He's got a toughness level to him because of overcoming the health issues that he's had. And basketball is a game of skill, and you have to have that freedom. You have to be relaxed. And I don't know that he was in the Bahamas, and I don't know he was in the first half, but that jumper seemed to calm him down as well as playing without the big.
Ryan, any thoughts on Rice from you tonight?
Yeah, I think that Coach is right. In the first half, he just did not look comfortable on the floor. And I don't know if that's just still getting used to his teammates, still getting used to the system. I have noticed with him and Carlisle as well, a tendency to really want to lean on the long twos and as opposed to really stepping into a 3. So he's comfortable like he was tonight on that jumper that you talked about in the corner that really got him going. I think he's comfortable inside the arc and not as comfortable outside the arc when you're trying to keep spacing for bigger guys, guys who do clog the lane. That's tougher to do to go find those long twos. So I think that's something that he is maybe used to leaning on that he's not utilizing as much this year. And if you looked at the numbers last year, Washington State shot a lot of long twos, as did Carlisle. So I think, I just think that he started to play free in the second half and started attacking, as opposed to the first half. It looked like he was overthinking everything and trying to do too much. And I think just a string of bad games can get you thinking about how you're having bad games, and that's not the way to get out of a slump. The way to get out of a slump is not to keep thinking about why you're in a slump. So,
yeah,
short memory.
Yep. Coach said you had a couple moments. I've got a couple more, but I'll throw it to you next for what you had.
Yeah, I thought we saw a little adjustment from Coach Woodson in the nail slot rim. I thought they stayed closer to shooters, and I disrupted Sam Houston.
Thank God.
Yeah. And I called it better gap control or gap integrity. They were in gaps. They were there to help, but they didn't overcommit and then have to rotate on that backside, which our friends at Inside the Hall and Ryan Carrazza, I hope I pronounced your name right, did a really good film study of some of the struggles on the rotations out of that nail slot rim. I don't think we saw it a whole lot tonight, and I think it really disrupted the flow. I don't think Indiana played great defense. I don't think they're anywhere close to playing great defense right now, individually and collectively. But there was an attempt, which I appreciate from the coaches, going, this is a three-point shooting team. They shoot 39%. We need to adjust to the opponent because when you're better and you're more skilled and you can then adjust and take away what the opponent's doing well, you're going to win 97-71. If you just say we're better and we're going to do what we want, that's how you leave teams in, and we've seen way too much of that over time. So I thought that was something that I picked up that I wanted to share. And the other thing was Coach Woodson runs some pretty good dang zone offense. I think it was a 3-2 or a staggered 2-3 that Sam Houston tried, and they had Goode running the baseline. So you have a three-point shooter running the baseline, and then you have Balo setting either I call it a center screen or a seal on the center as Goody's running across the baseline. Balo's pinning his guy, and I don't know if it was Galloway. I think it was Galloway.
Galloway,
that.
yeah.
And he pinpoint pass, and there was a foul, and got to the free throw lines. And we see a little 1-4 high when there's some zone offense, and I think so. One of the things that I think Coach Woodson does well, and there's a lot of things that I question, obviously, but zone offense tonight. That I love that baseline runner with the center seal type action. I think if they cover the post, you got a 3-point shooter. If they cover and they ran out on the 3-point shooter, now you got your big at the rim. That's well designed and it was well executed.
Yeah, I thought they ran some good baseline out of bounds plays as well.
Yes,
kind of secondary things off of those. I know Tucker got a layup or got fouled shooting a layup on one where he had a nice cut down the lane, and Leal found him. So, I thought a lot of those set plays, and that actually dovetails to one of the things that I was going to bring up so long ago, because I called so many fouls in the second half of the game. But I thought one of the things that had come up in some of these other games was really trying to figure out a way to get Mackenzie Mbako involved early. And I thought they ran stuff for him at the beginning of the game. He had 4 or 5 shots by the first media timeout. Now he ended up sitting a while in the first half because Goode was playing so well, Leal was playing well, and I think he was struggling to figure out the right time to put him back in the game. But I thought he really got involved early, and that was important for him. And even though he sat a little while, ended up being able to get himself back in it in the second half, ended up with 13 points and 4 rebounds overall. So Ryan, anything you wanted to hit on Mbako, just in terms of the way they utilized him a little bit differently? I think as we talk about some of the defensive struggles, he's still a part of that, being able to contain dribblers. And I think that's another one where playing the 2 big lineup forces him to guard smaller players, and that's just not where he's most effective. He at least can body some of the other guys. He's just not going to be able to do that with some of these. But I thought, at least offensively, they did a nice job of really trying to run stuff for him and get him involved early. You're on mute.
I got to figure out how to make it so my mic doesn't shut off. The thing that I think has impressed me this year as opposed to last year is how he is not shy about shooting a 3, and he will catch it and let it go. And I think just that confidence level, he looked more confident tonight than he did in the first 2 games in the Bahamas, certainly. And, I think with him, you hit the nail on the head that when they run the 2 big lineup, he has to guard a smaller guy who's going to be quicker, and he doesn't move his feet super well on defense. At college, he's a stretch 4. In the NBA, he's probably going to have to play he's almost certainly going to have to play on the wing, but in college, he's a stretch 4, and he's playing out of position on both ends of the floor. And what Indiana should be doing is running a 4-out system with 1 post guy, and he'd be on the perimeter. And with 1 post guy instead of 2, there would be more open lanes for him to attack and use his creativity to get to the hoop. That's not the case right now, and he's got to deal with it. But I just think that you see him flow better when there is more spacing on the floor. And I think you can say that about Rice too. When there's more spacing on the floor, it opens everything up, and it makes it easier for guys who attack off the dribble and who are going to run through, get open, and take a shot. You're not as isolated on the perimeter as you are when there's 2 bigs clogging everything up. It's not as hard to cut through. It's not as hard to find your space on the perimeter.
Yeah, the only other moment that I had, and Coach, you touched on something very similar to this when you were talking about Luke Goode. They showed, I think they're coming back from a commercial. He kind of moved his seat to go sit next to Dallas James, guy who didn't even end up getting in the game, but was like talking to him, kind of engaging with him. I think those little things become really important, especially for a team that is so much is made of all the new players and how everybody comes together and doing all those things. I think having a guy like that who's really trying to do some of the things that he's doing, and is just seems like a textbook great teammate is really important. So wanted to mention that, at least because it kind of felt like it went along with what you had there as well. But any other moments, you guys, before we hit stats? I think there's definitely some interesting ones of those to hit for sure.
I think that's all I have.
All right. We will move on to go inside the numbers, which is brought to you by our friends at Jackson Hewitt Tax Services. If you live in Bloomington or the surrounding areas and you want your taxes done right, Contact our friend and Chat Mob Hall of Famer Megan Mahaffey and her team in Bloomington, Bedford, and Martinsville by calling 812-339-3334 or visiting jacksonhewitt.com. All right, stat-wise, one of the big ones coming out of Atlantis was the rebounding, and particularly defensive rebounding. And coming into the game, that was one of the things, I think that was the thing of the four factors, at least, that Sam Houston did the best, was get offensive rebounds. IU held them to just 5 offensive rebounds on the night. It's 5 offensive rebounds on, quick math here, 35 missed shots. So a pretty good percentage there. I think a couple of those came late. It was at 2 for a really long time. And I think what that led to was an advantage in fast break points for IU of 25-16. And that was also a number that was a lot more tilted toward IU in that regard. And I think, the rebounding in and of itself was much improved, but what it allowed IU to do was be able to get out and get some easy baskets. And I thought even with not playing the 2 big lineup, as we, kind of beat this dead horse a little bit here, I guess, they were still able to rebound effectively, but also really get out and push the ball down the court in a way that allowed them easy baskets. They hit some of those transition threes, particularly early. And I thought that, that was a huge thing coming into this game that, kind of looked at in that regard. Ryan, any thoughts or anything you saw differently that this team was doing from an approach to rebounding, or was it just more focused on fundamentals and be where you're supposed to be and go get the ball?
I just think they were more focused. And I think that, I'll say this team, it's remarkable how much better they play when they know they are better than the competition. And they do things like go grab rebounds. They do things like calm down and stop turning it over. They do things like maybe communicate a little bit on defense better. Although the defense, has its problems, but I think that the players on offense just have more confidence when they know they're better than the opponent. And it's just a marked difference from the attitude of the team in those 2 situations. And that worries me heading into Big Ten play, where they may not know they're better than everybody they're facing. So I think tonight the rebounding advantage was just going and getting the rebounds. It sounds stupid to say that, but they just looked more focused on actually doing it. Maybe they've had it beat into them for days that they have to do that, so they're doing it. But that's what it seemed like to me, is just a better focus on that fundamental of going and getting the rebounds and not letting a team just beat you up on the boards as they have this season.
Coach, what stats stood out to you?
Indiana took 44% of their shots in the first half from 3. That's a number we haven't seen. Now, the total number for the game was 27.5. They only took 4 in the second half, and they really didn't need to because they wore down Sam Houston. They were able to get at the rim, and the referees called everything in the Blue Moon and put people to the foul line. But Indiana was on pace to get in the upper 30s or 40s, where some of the top 3-point shooting teams are. Again, I will believe it when I see it consistently for more than just one half. Consistency is my key word for this ball club. There have been bright spots all year, and there have been lots of bad spots all year, as there were today in the game. But Luke Goode hits 4. Mbako had a play run for him early. In the first half. Okay. And so but you shot 25 shots, and 11 of them came from 3. That's more modern basketball. That's actually more than most teams would do. Would love to see that continue, because I think it opened up Luke Goode. I think it opened up Mbako. It opens up some of your better players. You don't have to just go through one player. If you have a talented roster, you need to run things for people who can put the ball in the basket. And Indiana has several guys who can put the ball in the basket, change things up, a variety of actions, a variety of shots, go to the hot hand. We saw some of that tonight. We need to see it consistently for Indiana to reach its potential.
I want to add to the 3-point shooting. Indiana shot 46.7% from 3, and they only shot 15 times. As our friend Mark Titus will say, if you're shooting over that number, you're not shooting enough. And I think that's true. And again, you're right, Coach. They kind of wore them down in the second half and were able to get to the rim. But the other thing that concerns me about this is if you look at who made the 3-pointers, only 3 players made a 3-pointer, and Luke Goode had 5 of 7. Myles Rice, 1 of 2. Mackenzie Ibaka, 1 of 4. And only 2 other players even shot them after that, which is Leal and Galloway both had 1. So it's not like a pervasive thing across the team. It was basically Luke Goode got hot and they started feeding him. And that's good. And I'm not going to make a it's goody joke. That's just no. But but I'm happy for that. But this needs to be an attitude across the team. It can't just be one guy getting hot and, oh, look, we shot 46% from 3. It needs to be other guys contributing. Malik Renew can shoot from out there. He needs to do it. Trey Galloway needs to take more shots from out there. Look, Trey shot, whatever. But if you're a guard and you're on the floor, you got to take shots. Myles Rice probably needs to shoot more than 2. Bryson Tucker probably needs to fire at least 1 a game. You need that to be a pervasive attitude throughout the team for those numbers to get better, or else you're bogging yourself down by attacking, being at the rim all the time. You need to spread that out and you need to balance it. And that's the thing. People ask what modern basketball is. It's balance. It's either shots at the rim or from 3 and balancing those out. That's all it is. And then tempo. That's modern basketball. And it's things that Indiana has not done well the last few years. It was great to see them make some threes tonight. Great to see Goody get going. But this needs to be consistent. As you said, Coach, consistency is what you're looking for. That needs to be consistent across the team, not just with a handful of guys.
Yeah, dang, you crapped on my positive 44% in the first half comment, but that's okay. You're right. I mean, it's not consistent across the board. I was trying to find a glimmer of hope.
Continue. Yeah, I'd love to see it continue.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know what it would have looked like if the second half had played out a little bit differently in terms of the way that it was officiated. It really made sense to try to get to the rim, given how it was officiated. So there was a time in the first half where it was over 50% that they had taken. The only pushback I'd have, Ryan, on some of that is like I think the team needs to take them, but I don't know that you need to. I would look at the distribution of who shot tonight and would say those are probably the guys you want shooting them.
More than others, sure. But I do. And
I thought Leal had other times where he may have been able to take one and guys missed him. And I think he's another guy you'd feel pretty comfortable doing that. But I'm not totally convinced that you need Galloway to take a lot more, or that you need Tucker to take, because he hasn't really shown the range to do that. So I while overall could see more, there's certain guys I don't know that just need to take them for the sake of taking them.
I agree with you in principle. The one thing I would say is that it makes you so much more dangerous if other teams have to respect everybody on the perimeter, that they might take that shot, that they can make that shot. And so, because we've seen at times guys just completely backing off Indiana shooters because they know they're not going to shoot and they know they can't make it. And we've seen that. And so it's less like I want Galloway to take 5 a game. It's more just you need to continue to show that you're willing to take that shot, even if you haven't been making it. Eventually you're going to start, hopefully, and well, maybe not, but you need to show that threat from the perimeter. And I think that's more what I'm getting at than I want them all taking a ton of threes.
Yeah, I got you. All right. Other numbers. We talked a lot about the bench guys. Not surprisingly, that shows up in a 36-10 edge in bench points between Goody with 18, Tucker had 8. Really, outside of Rayford, everybody who played in the game scored, and he only played the last minute. So I think that was obviously critical for being able to also only have one guy play over 30 minutes, and that was Myles Rice, who played 31. So kind of what you want to get out of games like this in a lot of ways, of being able to get a lot of guys playing time, get contributions from a lot of people, but not really run somebody too much. Turnovers much better in the second half, just 3 in the second half. They had one.
That was my number. Yeah.
One of the first couple possessions, and then really only 2 the remainder of the half at that point.
9 in the first half.
Yeah. 9 was rough. And like I said earlier, you had 4 really early, 3 really late. And had some good moments in between there. Free throws, 22 of 29, 76%, continues to be an improvement from this team. Ballo missed, had 4 of the 7 misses. He was 6 out of 10 though. I think based on what we've seen from him, you'd probably take 6 out of 10 and feel pretty good
every
about
time.
it. So not gonna belabor that too much. The one thing I will say, on the negative side, if you will, IU ends up giving up 46 points in the second half. And so, Coach, I know you talked about seeing some small defensive adjustments, but to me, opponents are going to try to do whatever they can to lift guys who might be potential rim protectors, put IU in situations where they're going to have to communicate and hope that breaks down, or just straight line drive somebody to the basket. And those are things that they continue to struggle with in my view. What did you see watching this in terms of, defensively in the second half? I don't know that Sam Houston did anything terribly differently in the second half, but maybe you saw something that I didn't. But what's still kind of giving IU trouble on that end of the floor? Because I think that's the one negative that I would probably come out of this game with, is there's still a lot of room for improvement on that side of the
not very good defensively. They struggle guarding the bounce, and I don't know that they have many players who are really good lockdown defenders on the bounce. Carlisle's one. He didn't play today. I think Rice is one. Cups can be one a little bit, but his size. But really, Goode got driven 3 or 4 times tonight. As good as the game as he played, he got that little pass in the short post where the guy just opened up, pivoted, and drove by him. Mbako got driven all night long. Renew gets driven and ball watch and gives up threes. Balo can't go, so Leal, Galloway struggled tonight on the bounce. So I don't know if we're really good on-ball defensive talent. So, we all get mad at the nail slot rim, but the nail slot rim is to stop penetration. And maybe if you have a team that can't guard the bounce, you got to have your help there. But the problem is then you give up threes. So I'd much rather guard – again, it's just a different – I'd much rather guard the 3 and have someone drive down the lane like they did tonight and then contest a 2, make them take a wild 2.
Yeah.
And maybe run Balo with the crackdown. I'm all about taking mid-range 2s and running 2s and layups at the rim over bigs. And it looks bad, though. It looks bad when you get direct drive and Brian Butch is saying, another direct drive. Well, they were playing out tonight. To credit the coaching staff, they weren't helping as much on the drive. And if you don't help in this era where people are so talented with the bounce, you're going to give that up. And a lot of coaches do that. Let them get into the lane and take a crazy shot. But with that being said, you don't want freebies at the rim. And the Bahamas was like Merry Christmas to every IU opponent. You want a basket at a rim? Here's Oprah. You have a shot at the rim. Here's a wide open dunk. Here's a dump down for a layup with no contested. You have to contest shots in the lane. You can't give freebies in the lane, and Indiana gives up too many freebies in the lane on these direct drives or they foul. So that's the thing. They were at 7.718 or something like that points per possession defensively in the first half, and it ended up 9 point something. So that the second half points per possession were widely a negative. So defensively, this team's not nowhere near where it needs to be to compete in the Big Ten. We saw a lot of glimmers of hope offensively and lineup-wise tonight, but defensively, I don't know that they have fixed their problems yet.
They're going to have to outscore people right now.
Yep, I would agree. Yep. Ryan, you said you had one last number before we break?
Yeah, it'll be quick. Malik Renew, 18 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals. Great. Also had 4 fouls. He needs to stop fouling. I mean, it's just something that is, because if you're having 4 fouls against Sam Houston State in these tighter, tougher Big Ten games against more talented players, it's going to be something. It's been a theme throughout his career. He's got to stop guarding with his hands. That's it. And he's got to get in better position and he's got to move his feet. I mean, it's very simple, but you could put up those great numbers, but if you're not on the court enough, and he did play 30 minutes tonight, but in a Big Ten game, he might not be able to because he's going to get himself in foul trouble.
Yeah, I think that ties back really closely to what Coach talked about. Like, he's a guy that they're going to try to isolate and drive where they can, or get him into a switch and drive him. And he's going to give up fouls in those situations, which means he cannot give fouls like the first one he picked up, where he's got a guy that's posted 10 feet out, who's probably not going to shoot over top of him, and he's just trying to poke the ball away from behind. Like, those are the ones that he has to cut out, because he's going to get fouls at guys going to the rim and him trying to guard people off the dribble. He can't get the ones that a guy's not really even in a position to score, and you're making, silly ones like that. So I think that, you're not going to eliminate that from his game. You got to eliminate certain types of those from his game as you think about it that way.
Renew has to understand that he is a very, very valuable player for Indiana on both ends. And I'm not saying it's a conscious thing with Malik because I don't know Malik, but right now Malik gives everything he's got on the offensive end. And he gives, to me, like a 30% effort on the defensive end. Like, he'll score and he'll flex and he'll scream at the crowd, but then he'll watch the ball and give up a three on the other end, or he'll close out poorly. Like, I just don't see the same effort on the defensive end from him as the offensive end. So he stuffs the stat sheet, and he's probably a plus in all of that. But he gives up a lot of points, and somewhat similar is Mbako. And I'm a defensive guy. I love people who can score the basketball, but I also love people who will fight through screens and be aware and be in the right positions and close out hard. And, it's Miller Kopp. Miller Kopp couldn't really stop the ball either, but, boy, he was fighting when he got beat, and he would slap at the ball, and he would contest shots, and he would fight all the way through every possession. But Malik is so valuable and so talented on the offensive end, but he's got to match that on the defensive end. If he matches that on the defensive end, Indiana automatically is getting better. And it's tough because we're asking him to guard fours and then switching on threes and then switching on twos. Like Coach Woodson's asking him to do something really, really tough, and I sympathize with him. He'd be better off just guarding that post player, I think. But he's got to try, in my opinion, in better stances, better closeouts, better pursuit of the basketball. Even though he got 10 rebounds, he can be better rebounder as well. He can be a dominant force on both ends if he chooses to be. And it's time. It's his junior year. I think if he does that, man, the ceiling, we can beat some teams that now people think we don't beat or will not beat.
All right. Well, coming up on the assembly call, we're going to hand out our game balls and Hoosier Hustle Award. We'll discuss a lingering question or two and look ahead to IU's next opponent. That's all coming up on the assembly call. Stick with us.
This is Nick Zeisloft. I never miss an open three, and I never miss an episode of The Assembly Call.
You are listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. I'm Andy Bottoms here with Coach Brian Tonsoni and Ryan Phillips, and we are finishing up our breakdown of IU's 97-71 victory over Sam Houston. It's now time for our game balls presented by our friends Allie and James over at Bloom Environmental. And they want you to help protect your home's air quality, and the best way to do that is to stop water at the source. Voted best of B-Town in basement services for 4 years running, their basement waterproofing and crawl space encapsulation is the best defense your home can have against mold growth and structural damage. Mention Assembly Call and get 10% off of your system. Call today for a free estimate, or if you just want to hear Allie talk about Big Ten Coach of the Year, Kurt Signetti, for an hour, you can learn more about them at bloomenviro.com. All right, guys, time for our game balls. Ryan, I will go to you first. Who gets yours for tonight's game?
Oh, you jerk. I just asked you not to go to me first.
I didn't look because I can't. I only got one screen. So
this season I've always been asked.
I had the run sheet up and not the chat. So sorry.
I feel like I've been asked to go first every time this year.
All right, if you're going to cry about it, I can throw it to Coach. Coach, why don't you give yours first?
Yeah.
All right, I'll go first. I'll take it away. So I was getting ready watching the game, and my good friend Emily White, who's driving home from the game, season ticket holder, she texted me, and she is just an awesome friend. And she said, "Here's who the game ball is, and here's who's your hustle." And I don't mess with Emily. If Emily tells me to do something, I go to a Dave Matthews concert with her, I go because she's just that incredible. So really, my picks today are from Emily White, who's hopefully still listening on her way home. But I agreed 100% with her. Luke Goode. To me, Leo could have been the other one. I know there are some other people with great stats, but Luke Goode for his leadership, coming out and hitting threes, which are just momentum shots as well as 3 points, diving on the floor, energy on the bench, 143. The game's over. He's still leading on the bench. To me, tonight, this was the Luke Goode game.
Ryan, you ready, or you need me to go? You still thinking about it?
I'll go because I was torn between two, but I think I'm going to give one the game ball and one hustle. But it was back and forth a lot. But I'll agree with Coach and go with Luke Goode. 18 points, career high for him, and just the effort and just hitting threes. It's so important for this program to have people can hit outside shots. It's so post focused. It's so paint focused. Having somebody who hits shots, I don't care if he even leads the team in scoring. Those shots, each one of them is important. So Luke Goode gets it from me.
Yep, I'm going to make it a clean sweep. Thought he, like I said in the banner moment, his play in the first half really got things on track, let IU build a lead that they would never relinquish. And for as much as it feels like we're like, man, is this guy going to start hitting threes after this game? He's at 39%, 11 out of 28. So as we all know, shooters can go through some hot streaks here. And so I think he hopefully this is the beginning of one for him. But I thought just outstanding tonight, both on and off the court, as Coach mentioned. So he gets the game ball for tonight, which is his first of the season. All right, now time to move on to the Hoosier Hustle Award, which is sponsored by our friends at Evansville Security Services.
Hi, this is Anthony Leal, reminding you to check out our friends at Evansville Security Services. Based in the hometown of IU legend Calvert Chaney, Evansville Security Services has been providing off-duty police officers to businesses and individuals since 2001. In other words, they're in the business of prevention and peace of mind. And remember, prevention cannot be measured. To learn more about how Evansville Security Services can help you preserve your peace of mind by preventing bad outcomes, visit evansvillesecurityservices.com. That's evansvillesecurityservices.com.
I have a feeling that Anthony is going to be reading the ad before an award that he receives, but we'll find out if that's true. Ryan, I can only assume that he's the direction you're going to go based on what you said a minute ago. But
that is absolutely correct.
Just didn't know if you needed more time to decide or if you were good.
No, I had enough. I appreciate you giving that to me, Andy. Appreciate it. So Anthony Leal takes the hustle. I was really torn. I almost gave him the game ball. I really was torn on that, and
I knew that's where you were going.
Yeah, and it was between, and I would have flipped him either way. But yeah, I think that it was the right choice to give Goody the game ball and Anthony hustle.
Coach, or Emily's proxy, as I should refer to you for this segment. Who you got?
Emily says Anthony Leal. So I agree also with Emily because I never disagree with Emily. But Anthony Leal just in the right spot. He had the stats for the minutes that he was in, but again, his passing. I've said this all along. I every time he gets in, I think he can see the floor and pass, and that rebound secured it for me, and the dive for the loose ball. But when he was in there, trying to get that offensive rebound, then got a foul. Those things are just so important. I said it earlier, and I don't mind repeating it. He waits for his time. When he is called upon, he gives everything for the Indiana team, his teammates, and the university. And congratulations to Anthony.
Yep. This was an easy one for me with him. That foul, as you talked about, Coach, that was Wilkerson, the Sam Houston's best player. That ended up being his fourth foul, I believe. And he was starting to get hot a little bit in that stretch. Not saying he was going to bring him back, but just kind of rooting people out of there and being able to be in the right position was critical. As we talked about with him, I thought he helped IU play with the pace that allowed them to score in transition. Was active defensively, really ran the floor, cut hard, did a lot of little things that in some of the counting stats don't really show up, but in the the plus 39 in the game was not a fluke. If you watch the team the way they played when he was on the court, they were better with him out there by a wide margin. So that is also his first Hoosier Hustle Award of the season. So all right, in terms of lingering questions, I think the biggest one for me is, what does this mean from a lineup perspective going forward? I mean, we saw it tonight. You can chalk that up to opponent, and I do think there's a little bit of that plays into it in terms of how they played. But I think the question is going to be going forward, how quickly do we think Woodson is willing to, move away from the lineup within the flow of the game, if that's what makes sense. Like I said, he was real quick to do that in the second half tonight. Didn't even make it to the under 4 time or the under 16 timeout before he subbed. But Coach, I know we talked about this a lot, so I don't know that we need to belabor it anymore. But kind of put yourself in his position, especially as you're getting ready to have some of these Big Ten games where maybe you can make a different argument that lineup might be more successful against some of the teams that really want to bang in the Big Ten. How quickly do you think something like that changes, from Woodson's standpoint?
I don't think it changes extremely quick from Woodson's standpoint, but I think he did show a willingness to play it more today after coming out of the Bahamas. And he mentioned in his radio show that they chart stuff and their look stuff. So that tells me that someone's feeding him some stats, and he's starting to listen to it. Coaches have, we're pretty stuck in our ways and our beliefs, and it's hard to change. It's hard to change 7 games in. So I don't know that, if the starters get up by 8 or 9, then is it a per game thing? Was it just a game feel tonight, or was it something that shows a change that's going to be lasting? So I don't, I will see it. I will believe it when I see it. I think it's needed to play that because Mbako is your best offensive player. You have Goode coming off the bench in a similar role. Tucker, Rice shows that today. And I think Renew is just simply better at the basket or catching at the elbow and driving, doing his spins. But we have people who you could put in really good positions to score the basketball that I think the too big lineup bogs down. And so, the hardest thing is
getting those guards.
Yeah, and the hardest thing to do is understand what you believed going into the season isn't what you need to do and to make a change because it's just not who you are. But sometimes as we coaches, you got to. And I think it's at a point where if we really want to be serious about winning the games we need to win, I saw this in the chat, with the poor performance in the non-conference, you got to win a lot of conference games. You got to win them on the road. You got to win them against the teams that break out and are at the top of the league. You have no room for error now because you didn't get done anything in your only games. And so if that lineup is going to help, then you need to pull the trigger on doing that more. We won't see it start each half, and I don't think we'll see it end a lot of halves. But again, tonight was good enough against Sam Houston, and we'll see where it falls out.
Yeah, my only lingering question coming out of this is the defense. I mean, the lineup stuff is interesting, but that works towards the defense too. How is this team going to defend really well put together, talented teams? And I didn't gain a whole lot of confidence tonight that's going to be something this team can do quickly or anytime soon. So that's what I'm looking for going forward is how does the defense change? And even with the adjustments Coach talked about to the nail slot rim, they still gave up 71 points to a not very good team. And had
without their point guard.
Without their point guard, and had to score 97 to make it look comfortable. So that's my question is what is going to happen to this defense, and is it ever going to get it together? And right now it doesn't look like it, and luckily they have a lot of talented offensive players.
Yeah, looking ahead to the next game quickly, it is on Friday against Miami of Ohio. I believe it's a 7:00 tip, if memory serves. Yeah, 7:00 on the Big Ten Network. Just real quick on Miami, coached by Travis Steele, who used to be at Xavier, has been there for I think 2 years now. They're 5-2 coming into the game. They played yesterday. They don't play again until the game. Their losses have come at home to Wright State by 13 and at Michigan by 27, if my math is correct. Only one win against the team in the top 200 on KenPom. So I think they've shown some things, though, it's particularly on the defensive end. They turned you over at a pretty high rate. Turnovers are going to be critical, as they always seem to be with IU. That's really what they do best. Defensively have allowed some pretty high shooting percentages, quite honestly. They're sub 300 in both 2-point and 3-point defense. So IU should be able to get some good shots. They biggest strength offensively for them is shooting, but they're sub 200 in turnover rate, sub 200 in offensive rebound percentage, and almost last in the country in free throw rate and getting to the free throw line. So, some kind of statistical oddities there. Do have a little bit more size than what you would have seen from tonight. So be interesting to see how IU comes out. Hopefully a good crowd at the game. Right now, IU favored by about 15. If you look at the KenPom numbers, IU jumped up to like 44th, I think is what they are right now. Another game you got to take care of business as you get ready for those couple December Big Ten games coming up after that. But another decent test. I think Miami ranked a little bit behind where Sam Houston State is, but probably I would say pretty similar team, and at least in terms of overall quality. So with that, we'll just remind you to check out our friends at Home Field Apparel. You can use the promo code HOME23 at checkout to get 15% off your first order. And with that, guys, time for last call. Close things up here. Ryan, I'll throw it to you first for final thoughts on tonight's 97-71 victory.
Yeah, look, on the court, they got what they needed to do done. They won by more than what their projected spread was, so that's a positive for the metrics, and they moved up as a result. You saw a lot, though, from some veterans who play with a lot more heart than they do talent, and that's Luke Goode and Anthony Leal. I think that should guide this team moving forward, is play the guys who are going to give their all, because you have enough talent to do a lot of things, but you can't have guys who can impact the game in a lot of ways with their hustle sitting on the bench. And that's when things go bad, these are the guys you need to turn to. And when things go bad against good teams, they may not have the talent to match up, but they have the ability to make something happen, which we haven't seen a ton from a ton of guys on this team, especially on the defensive end, especially from a hustle perspective. So those guys need to be a part of this team moving forward, especially in games where it's going to be a dogfight. It's going to be tough. Those are the kind of players you need to bring with you to the dance.
Coach, final thoughts from you?
Yeah, I think there were some things offensively that, if you want to say is glimmer of hope, the lineup was a positive. I thought the first half 3-point shooting was a positive. I thought transition basketball, so that was a step in the right direction if it continues, and the word is still consistency. Defensively, I thought it was a neutral game. I don't think there was any steps forward defensively, so this team still has a lot of work to do. A game against Miami, Ohio, need to see a similar result, and then get ready for your first two Big Ten contests in December, and keep getting better. But you have to get better in a hurry because, like I said, there's not a whole lot of margin for error. I do want to throw out that Indiana football was 9th today in the college football playoff, pretty much assured a spot in the playoff, most likely on the road. But I want to shout out Nick Cornell, our AC follower, who was able to take my extra ticket, and I got to meet Nick and talk to him, and it was just really good. And walking around the tailgate lots, I ran into several people, Keith Rupley and so forth. I just want to thank everyone when you see me and come up and say hello, whether it's at the upstairs or wherever at the games. I really enjoy it. We really appreciate you guys listening. I've been really positive with the chat, and your comments have been really basketball-centered comments this year. That is awesome. So thank you for that. And hopefully this basketball team keeps getting better, and keep rooting on that football team.
Yeah, well said, Coach. Final thoughts from me. I think I would echo a lot of what you guys said. I think that the only improvement that I really felt like was there defensively was the rebounding. I thought that was a lot better and is a good sign. And it had, it paid dividends in terms of what the team could do on the offensive end of the floor, getting out in transition. I think that was aided by the fact of the lineup change that Woodson made during the game. And so I think if you're looking for other positives, I think his ability and willingness to adjust within the game to what was working and what wasn't, I think was important. And, we talked about there needs to be adjustments based on what happened in the Bahamas. You saw some of that in game tonight. I think that was important. Getting Leal some minutes, I think as we talked about, was a big plus. Seeing Goode make some shots was great. So I think some positive signs, as you guys said, a lot of work to do. Big Ten competition. While I don't think a clear lead dog has necessarily established itself in the Big Ten. You got a whole lot of teams that are, right there in that, 15 to, 35, 40 range where you got, night in, night out going to be a lot of really tough games. And so this team's going to have to improve to be able to perform in the way they need to, given what the non-conference is going to end up looking like. Certainly some steps, particularly on offense tonight, of moving that in the right direction. Some smaller steps on the defensive end, maybe in the right direction, but a good way to bounce back from the way things went in Atlantis. Hopefully can continue that on Friday against Miami and move to 7-2, and then kind of see what happens in those two Big Ten games against Minnesota at home and then on the road at Nebraska. So we'll see what happens, but certainly excited to see guys like Goode and Leal, the performances they had. Rice getting into a rhythm in the second half, I think, can really be important, and Renew stacking another good offensive performance. So I think a number of things to be positive about, still some things to be a little concerned about in the long run, but we'll see if they can continue making progress against those and getting a little bit better every game. But that will do it for tonight's show. If you'd like to see us do the show live and be part of the live chat, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/assemblycall. And don't forget to go to substack.assemblycall.com to join our free email newsletter. Special thanks to Bob Thompson for the music you hear on the show. And special thanks to John Ringer of rigdesign.com for designing our logo. And thank you for listening. We'll be back to talk IU Hoops again with you on Friday night. Until then.
Take it from me, Jordan Halls. Keep your elbow in and your eyes on the road. And go Hoosiers.
Thank you. Thanks for coming out.
That's it. We're done. No more questions.
Here I come, Mrs. Stansoni.
I think they've gotten enough show.
There you have it.
Absolutely.
Awesome. All right. Good talking to you guys. Thanks everybody who was here with us. And some of us, I don't know who's on Friday. I think I'm on Friday again, but I don't know who else is. So we'll figure it out.
I think I'm available Friday.
Somebody will be
possibly
here. Yeah. Somebody will be here for sure. So, all right. You guys have a good evening, and we will.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.